felt led to share a bit this morning, and so I hope you'll indulge me for a minute or so. And actually, I'm always inspired by Rob, and I don't have a PowerPoint for this, although I tried. But anyway, what I wanted to share a bit on this morning, a theme that has been coming up over the weekend has been that of callings. And so just before hopping into this, Lisa, if you could show the video, I'm hoping this will work.
Think in terms of your calling. Dave Dixon was talking about that earlier this morning. You know, basically it's who are you? What is your calling? What does God have for you specifically? How do you fit into the kingdom as an individual? You know, and everybody is going to be different. You can't follow somebody else's pattern, at least not completely. But you can follow a pattern of a lot of different people, because you'll find yourself overlapping and linking with a lot of other people's callings as well, and that's how we work together.
As you know, Stephen can go on for a little bit. But I've come back to this little clip a few times about calling, and so Stephen shared this a year ago. I believe it was a year ago. I have it noted as Passover 2015, when he was sharing on the divine departments of the divine government, and so this idea of calling, and so Stephen put out this effectively what I heard as a challenge to find out what your calling is. So I figured I might as well just use the evidence that was already presented and present it again. So this has come up a few times this weekend, and this has been a challenge to me over the past year. What is my calling, and how am I stepping into that? And so there have been a few areas there for me this past year. Maybe part of it is I know that my calling is in communications. At least that's part of mine. And so I have, I step out in where I feel I can best serve there. Part of that this year was stepping out with, and this isn't meant to be a blatant advertisement. I apologize if it comes off that way, but it's just what I'm doing, so there you are. So we put together the talk from Last Tabernacles in the Divine Courtroom and put it together in some better packaging, and up until this point, we have been doing recordings and stuff like that on a, produce as we need it basis. But I really felt strongly over the past few months that we needed to go beyond that and there's efficiencies in production, right? So we made 1,000 of these. So Lisa and I have a goal of getting these out there through Amazon and other channels, honestly, to get the word out there. So there's 1,000 copies that we made. We're working through that process to get them into those channels, and of course you are welcome to help with that effort as well. If many of you I know have already picked this up in different areas. There's some on the back table there, but that's part of my piece. Now I bring this up because when stepping out into callings, I have found for myself, there's this whole aspect of, we've been doing, as I say, we've been making DVDs as we need them, and that's been comfortable. But part of the process, I know, for callings is moving into a place where things are uncomfortable. And as we've all been finding our area of calling, there's a process that I've gone through where you step out into it, and that might be risky for the moment. But then you feel like maybe you're on the edge of whatever that calling is for you. It's feeling risky, but then after a time, it becomes comfortable. It becomes natural. It becomes, for however you've progressed in it. And to move into that place then where things are almost always uncomfortable, and you're almost always at the edge of what you're being called to do. And so this kind of represents it for us, because we've never run 1,000 copies of anything before. And so for me, in some way, that's stepping out into the uncomfortable space. And maybe then the other aspect of that then as well is, and I guess I think of that as somewhat of maybe complacency, although maybe complacency is not the best word, but that idea of getting used to what is comfortable, things are good, things are just kind of moving along. Why is it, I've asked myself a number of times, that we or I don't fully move into what I know I'm called into? I don't know if this is your experience at all, but oftentimes I look at it and, I'm just scared. There's just, sometimes just being honest with things is I don't know what's going to happen. And just that emotional, it might be Father saying to do this, and you say, yeah, that would all be great, but somebody else can go do it. Or, maybe I just don't want to go there because I'm scared. And so I guess that's been a challenge to myself. And maybe I'd share that challenge wherever you're at in what you've been called to do, to be willing to step into that place of uncomfortability. Part of the experience this past year has been that I have found that the times when I have been playing it safe have been times when I have felt taken out of the game. It could be emotionally, it could be stuff that's just life is happening. It could be that there are spiritual things in the mix. The enemy, in whatever way we perceive that, is coming against us, because quite frankly, it seems that if we're moving into our callings, there's going to be some opposition going down that path. So that is where the message of the divine courtroom has come into that, and we've been applying that as well this past year. And part of that mix then, Stephen mentioned the book from Jeanette Strauss, and he read some portions of that. Along with that has been her prayer and petitions book. That has been a good complement to kind of taking on some of those areas specifically where we're being taken out by the enemy, and to address those areas. And I've found that to be part of moving forward in this year. The other aspect that I've found really important has been that of connections. And I know that in the meetings like this, we find those connections and we find areas of support between one another. And just an encouragement to really, if that isn't a part of your life, to really seek out and make that connection. We can find ourselves sometimes just doing life by ourselves. And that has its own element of not having the support there to be able to come along and share with one another. This is what my calling is. Even to ask that question, how can I support you? How can I support you in your callings? The fact is, in a group like this, there are so many of us that have complementary callings. The power, the capability that is represented in this room, if you look around, is really pretty staggering. And there's just a huge strength that can come out of all of us being able to willingly support one another in moving forward. And we know this already. There's lots of, we wouldn't be here in this room if people hadn't been stepping into their callings. And this just being here is a huge testament to that very fact and that happening. So that's part of what I wanted to share this morning. Just a bit of a word of encouragement that there's some great stuff happening. And there's lots more that can continue to move forward.